Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Hannah. Hit that subscribe button and join the family. Today I am going to share an updated favorites vintage online stores. I did a video about my favorite vintage online stores early in my channel, but I haven't done one since, and I'm obsessed with vintage shopping. A lot of my clothes are vintage pieces, and I feel like I've just discovered so many more amazing vintage stores that I didn't mention in my previous video that I did. So I think it's definitely time for an update. So that is what we're doing. So the first vintage store that I'm obsessed with is ELIA Vintage. And this is where I found my gorgeous tan leather trench coat. This is probably my favorite vintage piece I've ever found. I just absolutely love this. It is stunning. It is everything I've dreamed of and more. But I will say that her pieces go so fast, so definitely follow her on Instagram if you like the vintage pieces that she comes out with or drops, because they drop like flies. I basically stalked her Instagram when I saw that trench coat until it went on the website so I could purchase it, because I knew it was just going to go so fast, and I wanted it so bad because it was like my dream coat. But her pieces are just staples. They are pieces that you'll have in your closet forever, and a lot of it is like a 90s silhouette. With her blazers and the trousers and dresses she comes out with is very 90s style, but I love 90s style, so I'm pretty much obsessed with everything that she puts on her website. So definitely a great vintage store to look at. My next vintage store that I love is JUDE. They definitely have a smaller range of vintage pieces because they also sell other smaller brands on the website, so it's not just vintage clothing, but what they do carry is always amazing. I've purchased gifts from there. My mom actually got my sister and I a pair of shoes last year for Christmas, and I love them. I got a pair of brown mules that I wear all the time. They are one of my favorite shoes in my closet. But yeah, they have really great pieces, and I think what the price point that she gives is fairly reasonable for the things that she offers as well. The next favorite vintage store is EVELIINA Vintage, and they're known for their beautiful silk slip dresses or satin slip dresses, and they're hand dyeing. So EVELIINA herself actually hand dyes a lot of her dresses, and the colors that they come out in are just beautiful, absolutely stunning. But I will say it is a very high price point, but her pieces are absolutely stunning. I have a brown leather jacket from them that I adore, and also I got a sweater for Christmas one year from them that is just beautiful. But definitely a higher price point vintage store, but their pieces, especially their dresses, that's what they're mostly known for, is just stunning, absolutely stunning. The next vintage store that I love is Shop Vintage Collection. This is actually a newer vintage store that I recently discovered, and they just have great staple pieces, very minimalistic, very neutrals, but they have amazing blazers and button-down shirts and trousers, things that are just like timeless in your closet, very casual attire, and the price point is very affordable, I think, for what they're coming out with, especially because it's more simple silhouettes and simple pieces. The price point is, I think, reasonable for it. But definitely check them out. They have some great blazers, amazing blazers, and a really good like oversized look. My next favorite vintage store is NANIN Vintage, and they have a huge selection of vintage clothing, like pages and pages. At least that's the last time I've been on their website. It's always like pages and pages long of just like vintage clothing, but they definitely have a more casual collection of vintage pieces, a lot of good like vintage sweatshirts and t-shirts, as well as jackets and tops and pants. But I always love looking at their vintage sweatshirts because they just seem so cozy. But again, very reasonable in price point as well. They also, NANIN Vintage also, I believe, has an in-house brand. So they're not just vintage clothing, they have other pieces that they sell as well that is non-vintage, but their vintage clothing selection is always incredible. And then the next 3 are new discoveries that I am very excited to start following and start shopping at because their pieces just seem amazing. The first being LUCIA, ZOELA. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm just going to put all the names here, but they are definitely a higher price point. They have more of the designer vintage pieces, like you're going to find your Dolce & Gabbana vintage and pieces like that. They definitely sell more designer vintage pieces, so the price point is higher. They do have non-designer vintage, but when I was looking at their website, I definitely saw more of a vintage designer feel than a not. But still, I love looking at that. I love seeing vintage designer pieces. They're absolutely stunning and amazing to admire. I mean, I will probably save up maybe to purchase one thing, but I just love vintage pieces, so I just love scrolling through it and just like looking at them and admiring them. And it's also, I follow them, so it's also cool to see like what they come out with or what pieces that they find through the Instagram. Another one is Retold Vintage, and they're a London-based vintage store, and they have a lot of minimal, neutral colors, vintage pieces, which obviously I love, and I'm very excited that I discovered them. And they also, I believe, have a good price range for their pieces as well. And then the last one, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name, but it means in the past, which I find so clever and really cool. And they have a lot of just timeless fashion, great statement pieces, great pieces that will just live in your closet forever, and I'm just obsessed with it. So those are all the online vintage clothing stores that I'm personally obsessed with right now and been shopping at and been looking at the most. I think vintage shopping is just so great. I mean, I love having unique pieces in my closet that nobody else has. I think there's just so much character to a vintage piece that just brings your closet to life almost. So definitely go ahead and check those vintage stores out. I'll leave them all linked in the description box below for you guys to look at and shop at and follow. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please hit that subscribe button. I love you so much, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye!